In a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape across the continent, one pressing question emerges. Why are African countries now showing heightened interest in joining the Alliance of Sahel States, AES? And what explains this sudden diversion from long-standing regional alliances like ECOWAS? As tensions simmer and new partnerships take shape, let's dive into the breaking developments driving this shift. Breaking news out of Khartoum. In a bold move that could reshape regional dynamics, Sudan's de facto leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has publicly declared his intention to pursue membership in the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. Addressing the nation in a televised speech from the presidential palace, Burhan emphasized that the AES represents a beacon for African nations seeking true liberation from the lingering chains of neocolonialism. This alliance is not just a pact, it is a declaration of independence for Africans who refuse to remain puppets in the hands of foreign powers, he proclaimed, drawing applause from assembled military officials and supporters. Diving deeper into his address, Burhan outlined a series of compelling benefits that he argued make joining the AES an essential step for Sudan's future. First and foremost, he highlighted the alliance's focus on unyielding sovereignty and self-determination. Unlike traditional blocs influenced by Western agendas, such as ECOWAS or the African Union, the AES, comprising Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, operates free from external dictates, allowing member states to prioritize their own national interests without interference from former colonial powers or international financial institutions. For too long, we have been dictated to by the IMF and World Bank, whose loans come with strings that strangle our economies, Burhan stated. In the AES, we can forge policies that serve Africans, not outsiders extracting our resources. Burhan then expounded on the economic advantages, painting a vision of integrated development that could transform Sudan's struggling economy amid ongoing internal conflicts. He pointed to the AES's plans for a shared economic framework, including potential joint infrastructure projects like cross-border railways and energy grids that would connect Sudan's vast agricultural potential with the mineral-rich Sahel region. Imagine Sudanese farmers exporting crops directly to our brothers in Niger without tariffs imposed by neo-colonial trade barriers, he said. Furthermore, the alliance's push toward a common currency and financial system would insulate members from the volatility of Western-dominated global markets, reducing dependency on the dollar and euro. Burhan cited how AES nations have already begun diversifying trade partners, turning to Russia, China, and Turkey for investments that come without political conditions. Contrasting this with what he called exploitative aid from Europe and the US that often funds NGOs undermining local governance. On the security front, the general delved into how AES membership could bolster Sudan's fight against internal threats and external meddling. He praised the alliance's Mutual Defense Pact, which has enabled coordinated military operations against jihadist groups in the Sahel, and suggested Sudan could contribute its experienced forces while gaining access to shared intelligence and training programs. Our borders are porous, and terrorists exploit divisions sown by foreign agents, Burhan argued. Joining the AES means pooling resources, drones, weaponry, and expertise, from allies who understand African realities, not distant powers who arm rebels to destabilize us. He referenced recent AES successes in expelling French troops and replacing them with Russian security advisors, implying Sudan could similarly rid itself of unwanted UN missions or Western-backed factions in its civil strife. Burhan didn't stop there, emphasizing cultural and ideological liberation as core perks. He described the AES as a platform for Pan-African unity rooted in anti-imperialist principles, where nations can reclaim their narratives from Western media distortions. Our history is rewritten by those who colonized us. In the AES, we write our own future, celebrating leaders like Thomas Sankara and rejecting puppets installed by Paris or Washington, he declared. This shift, he added, would empower youth and women through alliance-funded education and empowerment programs tailored to African values, rather than imported ideologies that erode traditional structures. As Burhan continued his impassioned plea, he turned to the geopolitical leverage. He turned to the geopolitical leverage that AES membership could provide Sudan in an increasingly multipolar world. By aligning with the AES, we position ourselves at the heart of a new African order, where our voice echoes alongside those of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, nations that have boldly severed ties with the puppeteers in Paris and Washington, he asserted. This strategic pivot, he argued, would open doors to alternative alliances with powers like Russia and China, who offer military hardware, infrastructure investments, and economic partnerships without the condescension of conditional aid. Burhan envisioned Sudan leveraging AES forums to negotiate bloc-wide deals, such as discounted arms shipments or joint ventures in mining and agriculture, thereby amplifying Sudan's bargaining power on the global stage. No longer will we beg for scraps from the IMF. Instead, we'll build alliances that respect our dignity and fuel our resurgence, he said, his voice rising with conviction. Shifting to a more personal and historical tone, Burhan delved into the reasons behind the military intervention he led, framing it not as a power grab but as a necessary act of national salvation. I led the coup because our so-called civilian transition was a facade, riddled with corruption and foreign influence that threatened to dissolve Sudan into chaos, he explained, referring to the 2021 ousting of the transitional government amid protests and economic turmoil. He painted a picture of a nation on the brink, where elite politicians, many backed by Western NGOs and Gulf interests, prioritized personal gain over public welfare, allowing armed militias to proliferate and resources to be siphoned off. We had no choice but to step in. The alternative was total collapse, with Sudan becoming another failed state carved up by external forces, Burhan insisted. He drew parallels to historical precedents, invoking the spirit of Sudan's independence from British Egyptian rule in 1956, only to lament how neocolonialism had crept back through economic dependencies and proxy conflicts. This coup, he argued, was a reclamation of that lost sovereignty, a bold strike against a system that perpetuated division along ethnic and regional lines, exacerbating tensions between the Sudanese armed forces and groups like the Rapid Support Forces. Burhan then painted a vivid, harrowing portrait of the suffering Sudan has endured for decades, urging his audience to reflect on the cumulative toll of these afflictions as a catalyst for change. For too long, our people have bled under the weight of endless wars, sanctions, and exploitation, he declared, his words laced with raw emotion. He recounted the scars of the Darfur conflict in the early 2000s, where millions were displaced and atrocities committed amid international indifference, followed by the secession of South Sudan in 2011, which stripped away vital oil revenues and left the economy in tatters. We suffered through hyperinflation that turned bread into a luxury, famines that claimed our children, and a civil war since 2023 that has ravaged Khartoum, turning our capital into a ghost city of rubble and refugees, Burhan continued, citing statistics of over 10 million internally displaced and humanitarian crises where aid arrives laced with political strings. He blamed much of this on neo-colonial machinations, Western sanctions imposed under the guise of human rights that crippled industries, foreign-backed rebels who sowed discord to access minerals like gold and uranium, and international institutions that dictated austerity measures while ignoring the plundering of African resources. Our infrastructure crumbles, roads unpaved, hospitals under-equipped, schools abandoned, because profits flow outward to multinational corporations, not inward to our communities, he lamented, highlighting how Sudan's fertile Nile lands produce cotton and gum arabic for global markets, yet farmers starve amid debt traps set by imported seeds and fertilizers. It's time, Burhan thundered, pounding the podium for emphasis, to break free from this cycle of despair and join hands with countries that share our ideology of true Pan-African liberation. He elaborated on this call to unity, stressing that the AES embodies a shared ethos of anti-imperialism, military self-reliance, and economic autonomy, ideals that resonate deeply with Sudan's own struggles against external domination. Mali expelled French troops and reclaimed their gold mines. Burkina Faso rejected IMF loans to invest in local agriculture. Niger nationalized uranium resources. These are our ideological kin, brothers in the fight against the modern slave masters, he said. By forging this bond, Burhan argued, Sudan could accelerate improvements in infrastructure, starting with collaborative projects like AES-backed hydroelectric dams along the Nile to harness shared water resources, reducing energy shortages that plague industries and households alike. He envisioned high-speed rail links connecting Port Sudan to Niamey, facilitating trade in Sudanese sorghum and AES minerals, which would create jobs and stabilize food prices amid global volatility. Diving deeper into livelihood enhancements, Burhan outlined how ideological alignment would translate into tangible gains for ordinary Sudanese. Our people deserve more than survival. They deserve prosperity, he proclaimed, detailing plans for AES-inspired vocational training programs funded by alliance partners, focusing on skills in renewable energy and agro-processing to empower youth in war-torn regions like Blue Nile and Kordofan. He spoke of health initiatives, such as joint pharmaceutical manufacturing to produce affordable medicines, bypassing Western patents that keep treatments out of reach for the poor. Imagine clinics stocked with vaccines made in Bamako, distributed across our borders without bureaucratic hurdles imposed by Geneva, Burhan said. On agriculture, he highlighted potential for shared irrigation technologies from Niger's desert reclamation projects, which could boost Sudan's crop yields by 30 to 40%, alleviating hunger in IDP camps. For women and marginalized groups, he promised AES-modeled empowerment schemes, including microfinance cooperatives free from usurious interest rates, allowing female entrepreneurs in Khartoum suburbs to thrive without fear of foreign debt collectors. This ideological synergy, he emphasized, would foster cultural exchanges too. Joint festivals celebrating African heritage, educational scholarships to AES universities, and media collaborations to counter Western narratives that portray Sudan solely as a land of conflict. As he built momentum, Burhan turned to the environmental and long-term sustainability benefits. In the wake of General Burhan's fiery address, reactions from AES leadership have been swift, with Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traore delivering a pointed response during a press conference in Ouagadougou, underscoring the alliance's openness to expansion while tempering it with caution. Traore, a key architect of the AES since its inception in 2023, welcomed Sudan's overture as a potential milestone in Africa's anti-imperialist renaissance, but stressed that membership is not a mere formality. The Alliance of Sahel States stands with open arms to any African nation that shares our unyielding ideology of sovereignty, self-reliance, and liberation from neocolonial yokes, Traore declared, his voice steady and resolute amid a backdrop of AES flags fluttering in the wind. Yet, let there be no illusion. Entry into our fold demands rigorous scrutiny, a thorough examination of intentions, commitments, and actions to ensure alignment with our core principles. Only then can any country truly join and contribute to our collective strength. Delving deeper into his speech, Traore elaborated on the ideological prerequisites that define the AES's welcoming stance, framing it as a safeguard against infiltration or dilution of the alliance's mission. He began by reaffirming the AES's foundational ethos, born from the coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger that ousted regimes perceived as Western proxies. Our ideology is not negotiable. It's a battle cry against the exploitation that has plagued Africa for centuries, he said, invoking the legacy of revolutionary figures like Burkina Faso's own Thomas Sankara, whom Traore often emulates in his military fatigues and direct rhetoric. For a nation like Sudan to qualify, Traore explained, it must demonstrate a genuine commitment to Pan-African solidarity, rejecting foreign military bases, exploitative trade deals, and international institutions that impose austerity in exchange for aid. We welcome brothers who have suffered as we have, under sanctions that starve our people, under drones that spy on our lands, under media that labels our leaders as dictators while ignoring the real tyrants in global capitals, he added, drawing parallels between Sudan's civil strife and the AES nation's own fights against jihadist insurgencies fueled, in his view, by external destabilization. Traore then dove into the benefits of this ideological kinship, arguing that it forms the bedrock for transformative cooperation that goes beyond mere rhetoric. Countries of the same mindset, those ready to expel French ambassadors, nationalize mines, and build armies answerable only to Africans, will find in the AES a platform to elevate our continent, he proclaimed. He highlighted how shared ideology has already yielded concrete gains within the current trio. Joint military exercises that have pushed back terrorist groups across borders, a burgeoning common market free from ECOWAS tariffs that has boosted intra-AES trade by over 20% in the past year, and diplomatic unity that has secured favorable deals with partners like Russia for wheat supplies and China for solar infrastructure. For potential joiners, Traore painted a picture of amplified power. Imagine Sudan integrating its Red Sea ports into AES logistics networks, facilitating secure shipments of Burkinabe cotton or Malian gold without Western intermediaries skimming profits. This is not charity, it's synergy born from ideology, he emphasized, noting how ideological alignment ensures trust in sensitive areas like intelligence sharing, where leaks to foreign powers could unravel the alliance. However, Traore spent considerable time underscoring the strict scrutiny process as a non-negotiable filter, delving into its multifaceted layers to deter opportunists. We will not be a club for the faint-hearted or the infiltrated, he warned, outlining a vetting mechanism that includes exhaustive reviews by AES intelligence committees, comprising military experts from all member states. This scrutiny, he detailed, begins with an assessment of the applicant's domestic policies. Have they purged corruption tied to foreign NGOs? Implemented land reforms to reclaim resources from multinational corporations? Strengthened borders against smuggling that benefits colonial-era economies? Traore cited the AES's own charter, updated in 2024, which mandates audits of financial dependencies, such as debt-to-GDP ratios influenced by IMF loans, and requires candidates to present a roadmap for phasing out such ties within 2 years of joining. Sudan, with its rich history of resistance, must show us not just words, but deeds. Resolve your internal divisions without UN meddling, redirect oil revenues to African-led development, and align your foreign policy with ours by embracing multipolar partnerships, he specified. Referencing how Niger's scrutiny process in 2023 involved on-site inspections of military bases to confirm the expulsion of US troops. Pushing further, Traore explained how this rigorous evaluation extends to leadership integrity and popular support, ensuring that new members don't import instability. We scrutinize the leaders. Are they puppets installed by Paris or Washington, or true sons of Africa forged in the fire of revolution? He questioned rhetorically, alluding to his own rise via the 2022 coup that he frames as a people's uprising against elite betrayal. For the populace, the process involves gauging public sentiment through AES-monitored referendums or assemblies, to confirm that joining reflects the will of the people rather than an elite decree. Only then can we integrate without risk, sharing our defense pacts that have reduced terrorist incursions by 15% since 2024, our economic zones that prioritize local currencies over the CFA franc, and our cultural initiatives that revive African languages in schools instead of French or English dominance, Traore elaborated. He warned of the consequences of failing scrutiny: rejection not just of membership, but potential isolation from AES trade blocs, which could cripple economies still hooked on Western markets. As Traore warmed to the theme of long-term vision, he turned to the role of youth and education in sustaining this ideological purity.